So in this video, we are going to be making 3 assumptions. The first assumption is that I run a company and the name of my company is Mac Company. The second assumption is that my company, which is Mac Company, has business processes. I am going to be employing people to work for me in Mac Company. So obviously I have an HR department, which is one of my business process. I'm going to be making transactions here in my company. So I have the finance aspect. I am also going to be making sales and every other activities relating to sales. So I have the sales aspect of my company, right? And also I have utilities. I have assets that are going to require maintenance. So I have the maintenance aspect in my company. And then whatever it is that I produce here, let's say I have to distribute it somewhere else, but then I have a warehouse where when I am done with production, it is moved to the warehouse before the distribution. So distribution takes place from the warehouse. All right. So then I have the warehouse and distribution process, which is one of the business processes in my Mac company. All right. Now, the third assumption that I am going to make is that I, as a business, have business needs. Now, because of the many business processes that I run in Mac company, I am looking for SAP software. All right, an ERP software that can help me to manage my business process. And of course, I want to use the SAP. And so I need the SAP software to be installed in my company, which is a Mac company, to help me to manage my business process. So I want this SAP implemented to help me manage my system, which are my business processes in Mac company. Now, the third assumption we made is that I have business needs. Every business has business needs. And before this SAP software is being implemented, all right, the business needs have to be looked at. All right, the business requirements have to be known, okay, because it is based on what that business requirement is, what the needs of this business are, that will determine the type of SAP software that has to be installed, all right? And then also, it's also going to determine the type of features that are going to be in this SAP software, because every business has unique business requirements. For me to have this SAP software, like I said, our third assumption that we are trying to make is that I, as a company, have a business need, all right? And I want this SAP software in such a way that I can be able to customize it, right? It should be able to be customizable. It should be able to suit my own business need, okay? So that is one of my business needs. The second one is that I have finance to get this SAP software, but I don't have enough finance. So at this point, we're looking at the cost. So I need the SAP software, but I don't have enough finance to implement. And at this point, I am having like some sort of cost restriction, okay? And then another aspect I also want us to look at is that Mac company is a small company, and we are really not paying attention to data sensitivity. So when I mean data sensitivity, I mean that I don't really mind if other people have information about data in my company. So we don't have this sort of regulation or compliance that is surrounding data security. Okay, so as a small business, I don't really mind if some of my data are being exposed to other business. All right, so that's another aspect that I also want us to look at. Okay, so because of these needs that I have, we have different versions of SAP. Okay, so we have the public cloud, we have the private cloud, and we also have the hybrid as well. So because of these business needs that I have mentioned, the aspect of the costs, right, and the aspect where I really do not mind if my data are not private. Okay, so it has been preferred that I go for the SAP public cloud version, and I am going to explain what this public cloud version is. Now, the SAP public cloud version, it just means that I need this SAP software in my company here, all right? But there's going to be some sort of a third party that will be involved in the process. So this is Mac needing the SAP system, but there is a third party that will be involved in the process. And the question is, why do we need this third party? And what is this third party going to be doing in this process of me getting the SAP system in my company? In comparison with the SAP private cloud version, the SAP public cloud version is cheaper. And like I said before, I talked about the cost. So because it is cheaper, I might also want to go for the SAP public cloud version. So why I need this third party here is this. Instead of this SAP software to be installed in my own server, all right? So Mac company, the SAP system is meant to be installed in Mac's server, all right? But because of these business needs that I have stated, and of course it has been preferred that I go for the SAP public cloud, it will not be installed on my own server, all right? And that is why we have a third party. So what the third party does is that the particular software is going to be running on the server of that third party, all right? So we have another company, all right, that is having a server that the SAP system that I want to get will be running on their own server. So since we already have the SAP system going to be running on their own server, it means that I can now be able to have access to my SAP over the internet. But now, because this SAP system is going to be running on their server, right, there are conditions that are attached to it, okay? Now, because it is running on their server, when it comes to the maintenance of the SAP system, they are going to be the ones responsible, okay? And the reason why I'm permitting this is that in my business needs, I had already stated that I really do not have IT infrastructures. And what I mean by IT infrastructures, now because Mac company is a small company, okay, I don't have IT infrastructures. So what I mean by IT infrastructures is that we don't have that type of money in Mac company to either buy or rent some servers, physical servers, or storages that are going to be used to run this SAP system. Because Mac company is a small company, we can't be able to afford that. And that is why we are now permitting that we have a third party that will manage the SAP system. So the SAP system is going to be running on their own server. So when it comes to getting the infrastructures, which are the storages, the servers, the third party, which is this company, is responsible for it. When it comes to maintaining the system, the third party, which is this company, is responsible for it. So it takes a whole lot of load away from us. Now, you would agree with me that because there are a lot of things we are not going to be doing, okay, the cost that is related for this is going to be reduced drastically for us. All right, so we are only going to be paying for what we are using. We don't have the infrastructures, okay? We are not the one carrying out the maintenance of the SAP system. So we are only going to be paying for what we are going to be using on the SAP system. So you see that it becomes cost effective because the server is being brought and then the SAP system is being maintained by a third party. So we are only going to be paying for what we are using on the SAP system. So anything relating to the maintenance, all right, either that there are backups that have to be performed on the SAP system, security settings, any security related issues, updates that are going to be done on the SAP system, everything is going to be done by this third party because we are going to be running Mac's SAP system on a different server, which is not our server. Now, there are a lot of advantages to this SAP public cloud. Like I said, one of the advantages that we have is that it is cost effective. Mac company is a small company. We don't really have enough finance for it. And we having a software where we are only going to be paying for what we are using is economical for us. Okay, since many of the workload is going to be done by the third party, so the advantage for using this SAP public cloud is that it is going to be cost effective for us. All right. Another advantage is that because Mac company is a small company, we don't really have most of this infrastructure. So we don't really have this IT department. Let me just put it that way. All right. Or maybe even if we have the IT department, we don't want to put some sort of workload on our IT department, because if this particular software is going to be running on this Mac server, it means that all of the maintenance, the backups, security, everything relating to these SAP systems when it comes to the maintenance, all right, and then the infrastructure is going to be done by the IT staffs of Mac company, all right? So we having to select the public cloud means that chunk of burden, okay, is not going to be placed on our IT staffs if we have IT staffs, all right? Also, we have disadvantages. Of course, we know that anything that has an advantage has a disadvantage. The disadvantage with using this SAP public cloud will be that we don't have control, or we don't have like so much control over our data, okay? And then the infrastructure. So when it comes to the infrastructures, maintenance, data, we don't have so much of control because this is done by the third party. So that's one of the disadvantages that we are going to be facing, okay? And another thing is data sensitivity. Like I said before, we might not really see it as a disadvantage because we really do not mind if our data is being exposed to other businesses. Because when we are using a third-party server, we are not the only ones using that server, okay? There are a lot of companies that would also want to use this SAP public cloud that will be using the server. So it means that our data are made public. So we don't really have regulations, compliance for data security. Okay, so we don't have privacy when it comes to our data. All right, so that is going to be one of the disadvantages because your data are going to be exposed because the server is going to be used by more than one company. Mac company is not going to be the only one making use of that server, which is one of the disadvantages that we might also have using the SAP public cloud version. So when we talk about this third party, okay, there are companies that do this. I think we have the AWS companies, and then we have Alibaba Clouds and some other third party companies that can permit the SAP systems to be run on their server. All right. So let's look at the SAP private cloud version. Now, in the SAP private cloud version, we're also going to be making 3 assumptions. All right. Then the first assumption again is that I run a company, which we already know, the Mac company. But in this case, let's assume that Mac company has expanded. So previously, Mac company was a small company. But let's now assume that Mac company has expanded, okay? And then the second assumption is that we have business processes, like I had already mentioned. The third assumption is also that we have business needs. Now, let's see the business needs, all right? So Mac company wants to implement SAP to be able to manage their systems, but we have needs. One of the needs we have is that we want that particular system to be customized based on our own business needs. Previously, we didn't really mind if it's customized or not, okay? But because of how our business runs and processes that we have, we want the SAP software to be customizable, all right? Which is one of the business needs that we have. Another one is that we are very keen with data sensitivity. Because our business has expanded, there are a lot of data that are private to us. Okay, we don't want these data being accessible by or being seen by any other company. All right, so we are very, very keen on data sensitivity. In fact, we have put out compliance rules, regulations that are surrounding data security. So at this point, we need a more stricter SAP version. Okay, so we're not going to be taking the cloud, the public cloud anymore. At this point, we need something stricter, right? Because now we want 100% security over our data, 100% control over our SAP system. Okay, so in this situation, there are two ways that this SAP private cloud could be given to us. All right, now either the SAP private cloud, either the SAP software, okay, is going to be run on our own server. So in Mac company, because we have grown, we now have the IT department, okay, and we have our own server. So we would then want the SAP system to be run on our own server. And of course, like I mentioned before here, where the SAP system was going to be run on a different company server, which is a third party, all right? And because of that, when it comes to the infrastructure and maintenance of the SAP system, it is done by them. Now, here, we are going to be running the SAP system on Mac's server. So it means that everything relating to the maintenance of this SAP system, backups, security, all right, is going to be done by Mac company, my company. So a large chunk of the workload will be going to my IT department. So the IT crew, they are going to be responsible for the maintenance of the SAP system overall and then the infrastructures. So either this SAP system will be run on my own server or we have a third party. But this time around, this third party will be dedicated just to Mac company. Okay, so unlike this one that we have, this third party, it's not dedicated to Mac. There are a lot of companies that are going to be using this third party, which is why we talked about the data security. Okay, having privacy for our information is going to be impossible here. But because we are so keen with our data, we now have this third party that is going to be dedicated to the company. So no other company is going to have access to my data. All right, because this third party has been dedicated that, okay, you are to give us this server, all right, just for us. No other person shares the server. So in SAP Private Cloud, either we are going to be running the SAP system on Mac's own server, or we have a third party that will be dedicated to Mac company. Okay, so when we talk about data management, security, everything will be managed by my company or the third party that has been dedicated to Mac company. All right, so it simply means that my company has its own servers, some storage equipment, network equipment. We're not going to connect it. We have it stationed at a Mac company. Okay, so our servers, our storage, our network equipment, we have them here, stationed here, and are managed by our IT team. Or we have a third party that is dedicated to Mac company that has these servers, storage, and network equipment, but is just dedicated to Mac company. So with this kind of setting, I am very sure that our data are going to be managed properly because we have 100% control over it. All right? And then the issue of data security is also tackled. So at least with these few examples, we can now be able to understand the difference between the SAP private cloud version and the SAP public cloud version. So in summary, knowing the type of version that you are going to use is totally based on what I want. Like we had already seen, Mac is a company, and as a company, we have business needs. we have what we want, which are our requirements, and these are what we are going to table, all right, to the software providers, and they are going to then decide what particular software will be suitable for our business needs.